Hi, hello, and welcome to the Study Podcast with Shivaj and Shreyansh. Today we're exploring the topic of pan vaccines.
So pan vaccines are vaccines that can kill multiple variants of viruses.
They protect against most strains of viruses and also known as universal viruses. And they also protect against particular virus or an entire family of related viruses.
So let's back up the train for a second. Vaccines work by introducing the virus into our bodies, and then we make antibodies based off of those fake viruses, and then we can fight off the real threat if it ever comes.
So basically how our body works is there's an immune system, which is a system that's used to fight against all the bad things in our body like bacteria, viruses, and stuff like that. So when you put a pan vaccine into our body, it gives us multiple types of antibodies, which gives us a big range of types of antibodies which help against multiple types of viruses that target different families.
Yeah, so imagine having to get a flu shot every 10 years instead of every single year. And in these, normally the head of the virus changes. This is the part of the virus that actually attacks our cells and implants its own DNA to make fake copies. But if we're able to target the stem of the virus, then the virus isn't able to go anywhere and we can kill it.
A big disadvantage of pan vaccines would be that if the virus evolved to fight the pan vaccine, it'd be very deadly because pan vaccines are one of the strongest vaccines we currently have right now and we're trying to develop. Because if a virus can mutate and fight the pan vaccine, then it would essentially be stronger than the vaccine itself and none of the antibodies would work. And we've seen this especially in COVID recently, and there's different strains of COVID that came out a few years ago during the pandemic, and that's a big example of why pan vaccines can be weak.
Yeah, so the reason is, it's like cancer. Our body can fight off cancer. It's fighting off cancer every minute. But the thing is, if it's not fully successful, like pan vaccines, we might have stronger viruses, cancer in our body, which would be worse than the previous.
This is also why people need a new flu shot every year and why there's different strains of COVID and why there's different vaccine types from COVID.
Yep. So COVID-19, like Shreyansh said, was a really big example. Two of the strands were SARS-CoV-2 and SARS-CoV-1. That's why you had to get two shots when you were...
And there's different variants like Alpha, Delta, and Omicron. And this all started during the pandemic when there's multiple strands of COVID.
So we look at the conserved parts of viruses. So if we're looking at the flu, we might look at over 10 years what part of the virus stayed the same. And then based on that, we fight off that part of the virus. So what the vaccine will do, it'll alert the body for the threat based on that part that stays the same over multiple years. That way we're able to kill off all the virus.
A good thing about the pandemic, which happened recently, is that it has sped up the process of making pan vaccines essentially, because we needed a really strong vaccine to fight off COVID, and the development in that area has increased because there's many government organizations and private organizations in the healthcare industry that are trying to do that. And yeah.
So the way that our bodies fight off these viruses is using antibodies, right? So the way that we're triggering those antibodies specifically is by using proteins, right? So we're trying to trigger those proteins to be made when this virus comes in. So pan vaccines are trying to alert the body and create proteins.
So often when we talk about pan vaccines, they use platforms like mRNA or protein nanoparticles to deliver their antigens or antibodies more precisely, which is how they do that.
Yep. So the reason why we're looking into this is because if we have pan vaccines, we'll be able to make outbreaks less deadly. Imagine the COVID-19 virus, but by the time it reaches, let's say, the United States or Russia, everybody is vaccinated.
And we could have conserve the virus if more people got the vaccine but earlier, and there would have definitely been less fatalities and less serious issues with COVID-19 if there's a pan vaccine earlier than what we got. And yeah.
And another thing to notice is that it's really hard to make a pan vaccine because viruses are really good at defending the parts that normally stay the same. The parts that do normally stay the same are like the stem, like I said, but it's really hard to detect the stem. So they're sometimes less effective than specifically made vaccines.
Another advantage of pan vaccines would be that less fortunate communities wouldn't have to go get multiple flu shots, which would be definitely more expensive. Because in Canada, we have a pretty good healthcare system, I would say, because we have free healthcare for most things. But in other more rural areas, people have to pay for their own healthcare, and having to do their vaccines every single year, multiple shots, would be very expensive, and I'm sure nobody wants to get multiple flu shots in a day.
Yeah. So the way that we're looking at these pan vaccines is using a disease X. This isn't a disease that we don't even know, like how our bodies are fighting off viruses that we don't even know exist, because we have so many immune system cells that we don't even know of, right? So our bodies, we're using the disease X to fight off the virus that we don't even know exists. So that's how they're trying to predict this disease X that we don't know, using prediction models from previous years, and we're trying to fight off that.
And we use disease X to name a vaccine that could cause the next big pandemic. And yeah, as Siobhan explained.
Yep. So that's it for today, guys.
Thank you. Bye.